Nagbabalik ang Schoolmates! Reminder lang mga ka-schoolmates na ang bawat episode natin ay hindi nagdidikta kung ano ang tama o mali. Rather, it's about sparking conversations and hearing different perspectives. Pero bago tayo magsimula, let's lay down the ground rules.
May dalawang teams na maglalaban, ang Team Pro at Team Con, na may tig-tatlong miyembro. Ang team leaders ang unang sasalang sa ating debate. Para sa bawat tanong, may 3 rounds or lives ang bawat isa na may 30 seconds per speaker per round. Kapag sobrang intense at walang gustong magpatalo, we activate the bonus round. 1 minute and 30 seconds yan na free flow discussion. Meaning, bahala na magsagutan ang magkabilang panig. Pero kung halimbawa, hindi na makarebat ang naunang debater, pwede siyang mag-buzz para palitan ng ibang team member. Ito ang twist. Bilang mga host, may kapangyarihan kaming mag-buzz sa gitna ng laban. Kung medyo off, boring, o hindi kami satisfied sa sagot ng sinumang debater, we can buzz you out at papalitan ng ibang team member. Kaya make sure na hindi lang matalino ang sagot nyo. Dapat klaro, direkta, at convincing. Bring your best arguments.
And that's it, schoolmates! Ready na ba kayo? Because for sure, ang mga debaters natin ay ready na. Ready na?
Ready.
Ready? Love that! Okay! Palakpakan natin mga debaters natin! So I hope that you've all prepared yourselves because mauunang sumalang ang ating mga team leaders na sina RM from NU and Yuan from PUP. So simulan na natin. Ang first question sa ating mga debaters ay, dapat bang ibaba ang criminal liability for heinous crimes sa 10 years old? Mauuna ang team leader na si Yuan.
Dapat hindi ibaba ang age barrier here simply because children are victims. They're not the ones. They might be the ones committing these crimes at the end of the day, but at the end, they are the victims of circumstance. They're forced to steal because they're in poverty. They're forced to do heinous crimes because they're either exploited by syndicates or they're abused by parents. They do these things, so they don't deserve to be punished the same way, let's say, for example, a human adult would be. Not to even.
Right, okay. RM?
I totally agree with you, Yuan, that these kids shouldn't be punished. But at the same time, I think the problem that we have here is as to how we look at the prisons. It's to how we look at them, like we see them as if they're some kind of cubes that are meant to punish people. But at the same time, I think if we lower the liability, I think prisons as a whole, they would inevitably change because they wouldn't cater to adults anymore. Rather, they would cater to children. And like what you've said, it's mostly the adults' fault. And if these adults are incompetent to handle these kids, then why don't we put the kids?
Right, okay. Can you elaborate more about what you said earlier, Yuan? Meron kang point kanina na binabanggit about why okay lang, rather not to lower down criminal liability. What's that about?
Okay, so the main point that I'm trying to bring up here is, deserve ba nilang mapakusahan the same way an adult would be? Because if you look at children, they don't have the same mental capacity to discern what is right from wrong the same way an adult would be. That is a consensus in this debate. It is a scientific fact. If you, coming into that decision, would like to have them, say for example, in these prisons at the end of the day, they don't deserve it. Because at the end of the day, they deserve justice means that you give the right kind of punishment as opposed to a punishment for all, which is retribution.
Okay, RM, anything to say about that?
Totally agree, but at the same time, I would like to point out the keyword heinous crimes here. And the thing is, we are not punishing them. We're putting them to prisons, which is really different. We're not giving them a burden of, they're gonna get punished, they're gonna get tortured. It's not like that at all. What we're trying to say is that we have to live in a society in which we see prisons for children to teach them how to be accountable and liable. Not in a very bad way, but in a very reformist way, in a very educated way.
Uh-huh.
Like, how do we help these kids in general? Like what you said, the parents themselves, like some parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mentioning on your point, I think I would like to refuse the premise that prison is not punishment. The prison system of the Philippines, it is extremely overcrowded, it is extremely underfunded, it is extremely, well, underdeveloped. If you would like to develop something, you should try looking at, say, policing systems that punish the people who are actually putting these children under the circumstances that they're in. You should instead try to focus on building pag-asa homes, which are actual reforming ways that you should be quote unquote punishing these children. What you're saying, prison is not the solution because not only sure.
Okay. Aram?
Sorry, if I'm not mistaken, you said that prison is not a punishment, correct? And you pointed out what is actually happening, which is the current reality that we have today, right? And I think that one of the main things as to how we can change that reality is yes, by acknowledging it, is but I also think is to actually change it as a whole. That's the reason why I'm pointing this out. We shouldn't look at prisons because the more you say in that perspective, the more it gets constrained upon the reality.
Okay. Hold on. I just need to like clarify a few things. I don't think any one of you would want to switch at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Okay. I would want to elaborate. Okay, okay. I love how the first discussion went, but then
Yeah.
I wanted to deepen the question.
Mm.
Anong grounds are we saying that you are pro to lower it at 10 years old? Because he mentioned earlier that they don't have the capacity to discern what is right from wrong. What is the grounds of that? How do we determine that they know what is right from wrong? And how do we single this out from adults who are also incapable or are placed in circumstances that they cannot discern what is right from wrong? Are you saying that the children should also be tried the same as adults who are incapable of discerning right from wrong? What is the basis of why you want to lower it down and why you are not okay in lowering it down? Yeah.
I don't want to lower it down simply because one, it is a scientific fact that every scholar ever, if you look it up, everyone agrees, the consensus that they do not discern right from wrong the same way an adult would. Let's say, for example, 1 to 15, 14 years old, they would not discern right from wrong the same way an adult would. Now, the question then becomes, do they deserve the same punishment as adults who do discern right from wrong properly and more developmentally as compared to these children who are, again, only victims of circumstance they were forced to be put in, such as poverty, for example, such as being abused?
Mm-hmm.
The main groundwork that we're set upon is who is accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Like where does the accountability go? That is the very reason why we're targeting the stigma itself rather than the rather than the system itself.
Mm-hmm.
We're targeting the stigma is that it will inevitably change and we have to have a reformist standpoint.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to elaborate and point out on these. Although I get where they're coming from, but yes, a children, doesn't have the logic, but who's accountable?
Okay, so let's start the free flow discussion. Sorry, I just want to elaborate further. You said accountability.
Yeah.
So where does accountability come from? What do we mean by accountability? You mean to say that you are teaching 10 years old accountability as early as their age? Is that what you're trying to say?
I mean, I like to think of it as this way. We all have approaches, correct? Even the children on their own have their own types of approaches. I'm saying that if we lower the age, eventually there will be new mechanisms or there will be new things that will allow these children because like who can be accountable? Their parents? If their parents are, if we frame it as they're the main factors why they're doing this or the other external factors that they can control, then we have to put these children into a position in which they can be accountable or taught how to be accountable.
Okay, so you question accountability. We agree with you that these children demand accountability. Whoever in the world does something wrong, they deserve accountability. But the problem here is that you mistake accountability for criminal accountability. What you're doing when you're criminalizing people is you're not just putting them in jails, you're giving them a criminal record. You're not letting them get into jobs as easily as other people would. You're not getting them into schools as any other children who might not be criminalized would, right? What you're doing is you're not just battling the stigma, you're increasing the stigma. Because happens at the end of the day, if these people go into jails, what's going to happen? They're going to get discriminated upon if they ever get these criminal records. If they ever are criminalized, they would just be under the dirt than they already are.
Wow, heinous crimes. It's very difficult. It's not heinous crimes. It's accountability in heinous crimes. Like what they're trying to do is they're trying to frame it as if these children did heinous crimes. And what we're trying to come from is who's accountable. We're
Mhm.
trying to teach accountability. And
Right.
accountability of crime, it's a heinous crime.
Okay. I need a fresh perspective. Can Aram and Yuan give the spot to a next debater?
Definitely.
Right. Okay.
Alright.
I love how the groundwork is initially started because you guys laid it out. Yours is accountability, yours is the infrastructure, the system that we have right here. I will go back to what Aram said and Yuan said earlier. When we're saying heinous crimes, it's about murder, rape. Yes, trigger warning to mga schoolmates natin there na most of these things are not essentially being put out in social media without a trigger warning essentially because it has a lot of effect. Have you heard the most recent news about the 16-year-old who got killed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Definitely, right? So the basis, again, I want to reiterate, your parameter was accountability. So again, schoolmates, sila, sinasabi nila, kanino ilalagay ang accountability kung sa kabataan na as young as 10 years old, ilalagay mo na sa prison. That's your basis, right?
Exactly.
Am I getting correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. Yours is about the system. That's why you don't want it to be further lower down, right?
Not structurally.
So, how do we navigate in a certain specific situation like that wherein ang nag-commit ng isang crime ay bata? And you mentioned earlier that they cannot discern what is right from wrong. What's the basis of that? Anong nagawa na nila? So how should they be dealt with?
Okay, one thing that we need to understand is scientifically, children are risk takers inherently at that developmental stage. That's why we can excuse, or like the status quo, we excuse 10 to 14 years old committing certain crimes, and 15 and above. The reason why we don't is because they're already in a position in life, usually based on like the environment they're usually in. They already have the experience, or they already have the environment where they can develop stricter moral code as opposed to how they could have been when they were 10 to 14. So that would be the basis when we say na on heinous crimes. That's why 15 and above is the best way to judge that.
Okay.
I mean, heinous crimes are non-negotiables anyway. It's that extent of a very violent crime that we need to be able to fix. Therefore, if there is already that kind of action, we question then, how do we be accountable towards the feelings of these victims, towards the feelings of these people? Because if the only way for you to answer is, they are kids, then that means, how do we going to fix that kind of behavior? How are we going to make them realize that these are right or wrong? Tell them off? Or should be able to have that kind of avenue for them to realize that, oh, all of my actions does have repercussions. At least on our world, we are not forcing.
Okay, I just wanna elevate the question further. We are trying to measure it against a global standard, right? Because most of the countries set it at 14 years and older. So dapat bang sumunod yung Pilipinas given na sa parameters that you have set? Dapat ba tayong sumunod sa global standard na yon? Or dapat ba gumawa tayo ng sarili nating path when it comes to someone as young as 10 years old? Okay.
Okay, the reason why this is a global standard is because the entire world is on the consensus that children should not be held accountable the same way as adults because of the fact that the first peak was already posited. Now, when we're talking about on an international scale, the reason why some countries are able to lower that on a certain age, like the UK, Australia, New Zealand, that's why they lowered it to 10 years old, is because they have systems that are functional to handle children who have to be put into juvie, as opposed to the Philippines, where structurally we don't have those kinds of systems. That's why right now in the present we can't do that right now unless as we change the system surrounding that kind of
Okay.
That's where Aram's standpoints come from. There's no reason for the government to fix the system. That's why this bill is the inherent incentive for this government to be able to act upon this motion. But
Okay.
more than that, the reason that we're able to follow it on a global standpoint is because most of the information we have online are intertwined with one another. Therefore, people are able to understand all of these crimes inherently. There is an overgrowing standard and a trend. Therefore, at least on our part, we're already fixing the system, even though that is not a problem as of the moment. We're trying to be more retrospective. We're trying to look into the future, that at least we're trying to prevent those things from
So
happening.
you'd rather be proactive in a sense. That's
Yes,
why
exactly.
you want to do that
Yes,
as early
exactly.
as now. Okay.
Yes.
So last one round for both of you.
Okay.
I love how you guys were able to answer like 2 questions at the same time. And also, paano naman yung hustisya para sa biktima ng mga or pamilya ng biktima, lalo na kung sila yung apektado dun sa ginawa ng isang bata. So, pag kunwari hindi nahatulan or kumbaga hindi man lang na-put into due process yung isang bata simply because bata nga siya, as you said, cannot discern right from wrong. Yun naman, you want to be proactive. Anong gagawin natin doon? How do we deal with the aftermath when something like that happens and it's committed by someone younger?
For me, there are formative educational systems that are there, like for example, DSWD, orphanages, seminars that are able to give them a chance alternatively. But I think those are under functions just the same as jail systems. So with that said, if we anchor those kinds of systems and intertwine them with one another, being able to have judges that are reliable, we're able to at least give children, number one, chances to change them, not because of like change like other than heinous crimes, so that therefore we're able to like fix all of those systems altogether, but as also we're trying to improve the systems inherently or like improve them.
Okay, improving systems is what I got from you. Okay, Jean.
Okay, that is an idealistic standpoint to like base your entire
Okay.
side on. I'm not provoking you, but the thing is, when we're talking about urgency, kasi this is already happening now.
Exactly.
So when you're saying now if we lower the crime liability age to 10, then consequentially the government will be compelled to fix those systems that we are attacking. But the thing is, that's a long way coming. The Philippines is particularly poor. We don't have the best governance at hand right now. So the thing is, right now we cannot do this. Maybe not ever, so long as the societal structures, the legal systems that despair kids, and the prison systems that aren't functional to protect these vulnerable actors are not fixed.
Okay. I have okay, a follow-up question just for this free flow discussion. You're talking about systems. Can you propose a specific system that you have in mind to deal both with the aftermath and the reformation if that's what you speak of? And on your case, like not like what kind of system change should actually be there para mangyari yung sinasabi natin? Start mo na tayo, Jean. Jean, I want to hear from you.
Okay, to change society overall, we can't do that overnight. Maybe that takes about a decade or so, generations or so. But the thing is, that's much better or something that's more coherent for us to do as a people than just like put 15 years old in the below to jail. So I think the best way forward to fix the problem of like heinous crimes for people below 15 is to change the way that we function as society. These societal structures pertaining to the way that societal norms that surround these circumstances that lead children to commit these crimes, maybe the systems that lead them onto that path of crime, like poverty or lack of education, those things we can fix. We are currently fixing. Okay, so I think that's a better way to invest our time and resources as a people, as opposed to just saying that these children are a lost cause. Let's just send them to prison systems that can account for the fact that they are inherently.
I'm sorry, but I think
quote,
that
unquote,
standpoint is more idealistic in my opinion. Social reforms takes a longer time, and if we're going to talk about urgency, we're much better off on political and systematical reforms that are more urgent. So I propose that the system that adults are functioning as of the moment with jails are more to be transitioned afterwards with children as well. At least lawmakers or like people, judges are able to discern what kind of punishment are able to be more appropriate on towards these crimes. Because let's face it, judges are more knowledgeable with this stuff. They're able to understand what kind of punishment is appropriate to these crimes. Therefore, at least we extend the system from adults towards children. So that's a more direct approach rather than waiting for social reforms to happen.
Okay.
I think the free flow discussion just ended there. I just wanted to say something about this debate now while the debaters are thinking of what they want to say. We're focusing on reforms or like changes in system that take years before it takes effect. What can we do now? I want to hear a new perspective